Hello, everybody. Hope you're having a great week so far. Not as warm as last week. It looks like we're going to have a little more rain than we did last week, too. But today we are in for a treat. We have local historian extraordinaire, April Martin Danner, who is the Wilderness Road Regional Museum and is education director of the Wilderness Road Regional Museum and the museum coordinator of the Raymond Ratcliffe Memorial Transportation Museum, both of which are in Pulaski County. And she's going to be talking about the 1918 flu pandemic and how it was affected locally here in the New River Valley. So let me go ahead and bring April in and we'll get started. Hey, April, thank you so much for joining us.
We appreciate being here.
Yeah, so first off, before we do anything else, can you give us an update on both the Wilderness Road Regional Museum and the Raymond Ratcliffe Transportation Museum?
Sure. First off, Raymond Ratcliffe down here in downtown Pulaski. Our board's going to officially give us the update tomorrow. We're going to be discussing it and how to do it. Looks like we'll be opening up soon, but we have to wait for them. Wilderness Road over in New Bern, what we've done, we've already been posting and saying and taking some tours in. We're hoping that people will give us a call. Let us know when they're coming and we will open up. And we've even posted, and I'm very willing to do this so anybody hears this, if people want to come when we're not really in our operational hours, since I do juggle both museums, we can do some afternoons, we can do early mornings. Just contact us, reach out at the Wilderness, and we will make every effort we can to open that museum up and share it with small groups and things like that.
Awesome. And I've seen on your Facebook, you got some videos, I believe you can go and watch, especially on the Wilderness Road Regional Museum, if you want to learn about some local history from the comfort of your home.
Yeah, I've been really having a lot of fun. I shouldn't admit that I've been having so much fun in the downtime, but we've been doing, going out and finding stuff. I was out looking for all the old ordinaries and taverns that still stand. That's the series that we're currently in with Wilderness Road. But you can go back and see any of those videos. I've done a few with Ratcliffe too. The one that people may be interested in, it's long, is what we did a few weeks ago with Memorial Day, and we went to the Oakwood Cemetery. And
very cool.
Walked around it and shared a lot of the soldiers' histories.
Very cool. Well, so I asked you, I'd seen your post on the Raymond Ratcliffe Facebook page, and you shared a picture from 1918 when I think it was the first big event after the flu pandemic had, let's see here if I can pull that up. There we are. After everyone was able to finally come back out. So my first question is, can you tell us a little bit how the 1918 flu pandemic was, how it affected the New River Valley?
Well, just like across the United States in the fall, from start about September, late September, all the way through October, it hit everywhere, and it hit fast. It hit real fast. In Pulaski, I can speak to that. Well, obviously, I know a little bit more about it. It hit right at the we're talking the very last days of September. It, of course, started in some of the Army camps, and then, well, Virginia has a lot of Army camps, so people were coming back. And by the 1st of October, people were very sick. And by the, they start reacting very quickly. In the next couple of days, the mayor's reacting quickly. The town shut down. They do so many things, and there was like 2,000 people sick within just those first few days. And there's a lot lost in Pulaski, but they do a great progressive kind of on the fly ability to limit what did happen. And Pulaski is one of I think it actually is listed as the hardest hit town in Virginia for what it had to go through.
Wow, that's amazing. I mean, so it sounds like Pulaski was hit. I mean, obviously we've been hit locally, but nowhere near to that extreme of 1918. And from what I was reading, just on the general pandemic, it sounds like the one really big difference is that the pandemic in 1918, it affected younger people. It affected kids that were like 5 and under, then also like the 20 to 40-year-old.
And that's a major difference. I wanted to, I like to go back and look at the original records to make sure that it's all matching up. And if you look at Pulaski, there were 92 deaths just in the town. That's town of Pulaski, 125 for the whole county. In Pulaski town, Oakwood Cemetery, I mentioned just a second ago, that's a community cemetery. knew from the Southwest Times records that a lot of the victims were being buried up at Oakwood. So I went and checked ages, and of the almost, I think it was 29. Yeah, 29. I found 29 of them. I know there's more. I just found 29 of that. If you were under 20 years old, there were 17 deaths. If you were under 30, there were 8, and there was only one person of all 29 that I found at Oakwood. So this doesn't speak to all 92. That was over the age of 40, and it was a man who was 41. So it's definitely a younger person's pandemic of 1918 versus what we're going through now.
And now, did Pulaski, and I mean, as you said, Pulaski better. Did they shut down? Did they have a quarantine during this time?
It was so quick. I mean, again, they reacted so quick. And Mayor Calfee, again, this is the first thing that they had to deal with too, is learning everything as you could. But they immediately shut down the schools. They did a little bit of proactive throughout Virginia. They shut down the schools in September 30th, I think, or that last week of September. And then Mayor Calfee also ordered the Elks Club, which was a theater here still on Main Street, closed down. Any large gatherings were closed down. Churches were closed down. And the level of sickness, people were pretty much closed down too. He did, or the group, that there was a committee that formed too and gave you some more guidelines. They did zone grouping. And you were also allowed to, if you were in certain industries, since Pulaski had such huge industries that were necessary industries, essential workers at the time, they were still allowed to participate and be working. Newspapers, just to keep the information flowing, was allowed. Gas stations to help keep people moving who needed to get to the people to help were allowed. They did some soup kitchens were set up and things like that. And ice cream, I always think it's interesting. They put a qualification in the things that ice cream could be sold still at the gas stations. So that's important. And bottled beverages could be sold at the gas station. That was it. Nothing else. Everything else had to be shut down and quarantined, just like, similar to what we've been going through. Yeah, it sounds very familiar from what we had. Now, do you have any idea how well the doctors, the medical field locally understood what was happening? There were yes and no. We do know that there were several doctors here in Pulaski. There were also several that had retired and were older, get called back in. We had several doctors who were in the American Expeditionary Forces because World War I still going on. Okay. There was one black doctor. His name was Dr. Corbin. He's like one of the major unsung heroes of the 1918 flu here in Pulaski. They bring in Mayor Calfee, not Dr. Calfee, was real proactive and was talking to the State Board of Virginia and asking for doctors to be sent in and getting the advice from the Red Cross and doing all that. So doctors were coming in, and pharmacists from Roanoke and other places came to help. But yeah, they were still dealing with a monster they didn't know and doing it rather effectively. Dr. Corbin, huge praise for him. And then the doctors coming out of retirement. Some of them got sick and some of them did. I think it was one that did succumb to the flu. Mm-hmm. And embalmers and funeral directors. I mean, the pharmacists, there was a lot of people putting themselves in harm's way to help. Wow. Now, as a side note, Mayor Calfee, that's also, I assume, Calfee Park for the Yankees. That's the namesake. That's him. And a long time. I'm sorry. I was going to say, did the hospitals get overrun? Do they have to build other hospitals, treatment areas for all these patients? Oh, sure did. The Elks Club that I spoke about just a few minutes ago, again, it was a large area. They turned that in. They got the bunks and turned it into beds. At one point, I forget the actual number they had that was working as a temporary hospital, the real bad ones. Most of them they stayed in their homes, and the doctors would come to them, but they did have that set up temporary at the Elks. And then the soup kitchens I was talking about were constantly, I mean, they were doing everything they could with volunteers. A General Chemical Company, one of the big companies here, set up and was helping with that too. And T.J. Wallner, who's with some of the other the fabric industries, were all helping out the best they could. I see. So the soup kitchens, I assume a lot of people were coming there because with everything shut down, they had to get food
and
They had to
eat.
get food, and then the soup kitchens were also delivering. They got some local folks would give them their cars, and they were taking the soup and the broth and the what people could eat during this flu. They were taking it to them to help them be sustained through the illness.
Wow. Now, I've heard some stuff about masks at the time. Did Pulaski have a mask order, or did they wear masks, or anything like that?
I don't have, I didn't actually find a real documented case where they're ordering and delivering masks, but I did find that the Red Cross in Virginia and probably other states too, and it trickled down, of course, to the county governments here, did issue that. And Red Cross was organizing and having masks made, but it hit so quickly that I don't know that was kind of like it was happening, but it wasn't getting recorded that it was happening. But yes, masks were, they knew the importance of it, and the Red Cross for sure was recommending that.
Wow. Again, sounds very, very familiar what we're dealing with now. So how did the flu pandemic end in 1918? You said it came in very quick.
Yeah, it came in quick. For the whole month of October, it was just, I can't even imagine how bad it was, honestly. I mean, we can read about it, we can envision it. But by November, they had opened back up some of the schools. Most everything here in Pulaski Town has subsided. Most of the deaths had, trickled down to one or two. It went off radar here, but other places like New Bern, where Wilderness Road is, they were still having some impacts. Snowville, some of the other smaller communities, and probably the same thing in Montgomery County and surrounding counties too, are having the spread out part of it. But it ended quickly. Like I said, they opened back up. They tolled the bells in town to let you can go back to church. The famous, not the famous picture, the picture we shared on Facebook and you just shared for us again, was in December, and that was the first mass gathering. And it's a funny picture if you look really close at it. Everybody's gathered and looking at the camera versus if you look up on top of the Price building there, poor old skinny Santa Claus is getting totally ignored because everybody's so excited to be out and about again. There was a little bit of a spreading again. There was a little backlash, kind of, what we're all kind of holding our breaths for and thinking may happen currently. Right. But it wasn't bad. And that I read a little bit about that happening in some of the other counties too. Just that little bit of contact spread it again.
So the second wave came, but in this area, it wasn't as bad as the first wave.
Oh, by far, it was nowhere near what it was. Yeah.
So the first event, you said it started in September. Am I
Army camps September, late September? It was already getting into the civilian populations across the United States.
And the first event was then where the public could come out and mass gather. Was, you said, December?
December, and I don't know the exact date, but early December. So they had already opened back up some of like the churches and schools I mentioned.
Right. Wow. And so again, very familiar. It took a number of months to get through this. And so it sounds like what they had to do was basically go through herd immunity. I mean, they didn't have vaccines at the time for this or anything, and just people got it and it went through the town and came back a little bit, but not as to the extent it did originally.
Right. Absolutely.
Is there anything else you'd like to share with the flu during the 1918 flu pandemic locally?
Well, I found something I thought was kind of interesting. I was doing just a little bit more research on Virginia as a whole to try to, if there was, for context there. And they talk about Southwest Virginia being hit harder. And they also talk about what we think today that people getting together are what are causing these issues, which obviously are. But then they talk about Dickinson County in far Southwest Virginia, more mountain area, more smaller populations, and they got hit really bad too. And there was some debate as to why these isolated communities with these groups up in their cabins were getting just as sick. And after they look back at that, and it probably happened throughout a lot of other communities too, a lot of Virginia has their fairs, their county fairs, end of September and 1st of October. And that's what happened in Dickinson County. Even though it was a very isolated area, they had gotten together before they knew what was going on. It took them back to their smaller family units and still got hit real hard. And then they didn't have doctors down there nowhere near what the doctors were able to come into Pulaski and do. And a lot of people died in their own homes, and the underreporting that we worry about now with the poor and the people who aren't getting noticed, the numbers that we have probably are a little higher even in 1918 than we know.
I see. That's interesting. I mean, it kind of goes back. I've read some of the contact tracing for our current, the COVID pandemic. And it seems like, like you said, a lot of the gatherings that people weren't aware it was going on, and that kind of trickled down to different areas and spread in some smaller towns as well.
Yeah.
It's very interesting. So almost 100 years ago, we're kind of unfortunately repeating history here.
Yeah, that's sad. There is another little bit of a difference, and I'm not going to say I'm an expert on this, but I made a kind of just an observation with the racial disparity and how disease is sometimes being, transmitted today and transmitted then. The population, the Black populations did not get impacted as badly with the Spanish flu. And one of the things, I mean, obviously there were as many big gatherings. But if you think about it, it started in the army camps. And in 1918, the armies were still they were segregated. So maybe the outbreaks were limited that way. And then, I mean, I don't know. This is where I'm kind of going. Where was that a reason? Was that something that was going on, or is there underreporting again, like I just mentioned? But when I looked in Pulaski, we do find some deaths, some Black deaths from the flu, but again, not nearly as many as the white deaths that you see. So speculation there, totally speculation. I think there might be that.
Right. Well, as historians, I'm sure you have to do that quite a bit, trying to figure things out. Well, April, thank you so much for sharing this with us. Like, I find it fascinating. I love history. And it's like I said, I seen your post on the Raymond Ratcliffe Transportation Museum's Facebook page. Like, wow, this is very interesting. And I seen that picture. So I wanted to talk with you and share this with everyone else on the next 3 days, just because, it's something we're going through now. And we can really relate to what was going on, though luckily for us, it hasn't been as bad as it was for Pulaski and the New River Valley back in 1919.
That's true. And one last thing, in case anybody wants to do any major research, all the Virginia board records for Pulaski County are at Wilderness Road. In case you want to do a dissertation or a thesis, we got records. Can help you out.
Yeah, that'd be very cool. And I'll share real quick here. See if I get this back up. This is the Wilderness Road Regional Museum. If you want to go there and check that out, I know everyone's watching this on Facebook right now, so it's Wilderness RRM. You can check out and follow April, which she posts lots of cool history on there. Like, as she said earlier, there's lots of local history and videos you can watch from the comfort of your own home. And then we also have the Raymond Ratcliffe Museum, and that's Ratcliffe Museum on Facebook. And you can follow April's postings on there as well to learn about all the different things going on. The two museums in Pulaski County. And as you said, April, you'll be deciding on the Raymond Ratcliffe Museum reopening tomorrow after the board meeting.
Yes.
Well, very cool. Thank you so much for all you do with local history, April. I really appreciate it. Thank you for joining us, and have a great rest of your week.
We appreciate it. You too. Thank you.
All right. Bye, everybody. We'll talk to you soon.